already heard from Mason and from Natan today, some incredible perspectives, and now we're going to see that vision brought to life by one of the world's leading manufacturers. So for our final keynote of the morning, we're joined by Steve Maddox, who's the Vice President of Global Manufacturing Operations at Stanley Black Decker. Steve leads SBD's efforts to align global strategy with local execution, building the systems and structures that enable agility, resilience, and scale across the global network. So please join me in welcoming Steve Maddox to the stage.
Thank you very much. Wow, I have big shoes to fill. I'm following a PhD from MIT who has innovated in the space of digital enablement. I'm following their head of engineering and technology. I can tell you now, I will not woo you with my intelligence, nor will I woo you with my technical knowledge. But I do know you guys have all been sitting here a long time, so let's take a minute, let's all stand, stretch. You guys have been, so spend 30 seconds, talk to your neighbor, do whatever you need to do. And then what I will do, again, not woo you with my intelligence or technical ability, but I will share with you our experiences with digital enablement. It is truly an honor to be here today. And again, before I get started, I want to take a moment to thank Natan and the entire Tulip team for putting this together. It is a fantastic opportunity for us to get together as a group of organizations and share our best practices and learn from each other. So if we could take just a second to give them a round of applause for all the work to set this up. All right, so who is Steve Maddox? I'll give you the nutshell. I graduated college in 1991, and I have been in a manufacturing plant or associated with a manufacturing plant ever since. I am what I define it as a knuckle-dragging manufacturing expert. I love it. I love the challenges that come with manufacturing. I love solving problems. I enjoy going to work every day. There is something I want to share with you, though, this is not just speech rhetoric. I've never shared this with anybody. I am addicted to efficiency. So I live in a small town in Iowa, so I fly out of a small airport. And because of that, I usually leave between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. every day, and I get home from my travels between 11 p.m. and midnight. And I value my sleep. So I have become an expert at getting to the airport and getting home from the airport. I can tell you right now, my average time from when my alarm goes off until the time I am at the gate with my coffee is 52 minutes. I don't speed, I take a shower, I eat breakfast like a normal person, but I can do it in 52 minutes. And on my way home, I know that if I walk down the stairs instead of taking the escalator, I can save 5 seconds. I know if I exit the parking lot on the furthest exit to the left, it's quicker with my credit card so I can get out faster. So that's a little bit about who I am. I'm a little bit odd, I'm a little bit quirky, but that's who you get to listen to for the next 20 minutes. I looked at the list of companies that are here today and I got a little worried, right? Because I'm like, there are some top-notch organizations that are going to be here, some leaders from those organizations, and they're not used to dysfunctional organizations. Right? I'm sure none of you have challenges with resourcing. None of you have goals that change midstream. None of you have bosses who don't really understand what you do or how you do what you do. And none of you probably have manufacturing sites that have different ERP systems or any site that thinks they're special and can't go along and do what everybody else does. I am certain that we are unique to that. So what I want to do is I want to just create a little fictitious company with us. Right, so just imagine a company with 3 manufacturing sites. So Alessandra leads one of these sites, up-and-coming site. We all know these sites. They like to do things. They like to progress. They like to succeed. She runs that site. Jove runs your flagship site, the site that everybody talks about. Hey, they're the best. They're the ones that we want to emulate. Everybody wants to be like them. And then you have Mike. Mike's plant is just getting started in manufacturing and understanding lean and all those great concepts. So you got the 3 spectrum of plants there. And then you have Stephanie. She leads the manufacturing. So this is our organization. It's an organization of 4. And any resemblance to any company here is purely coincidental at this point. But you can imagine the frustrations that they have, right? So Alessandra's plant always wants to do more, always trying to figure out how to get more done in the time that they have. Joe's plant is probably pretty frustrated because nobody cares about what they're doing because they don't understand it. Nobody applies what they do because their plants are different. And then Mike's plant is probably pretty frustrated because they're always trying to figure out how to resource everything that Stephanie's asking them to do because they're so far behind, right? Now imagine these 3 plants and you want to digitize the work that they do, right? And the challenges that come with that, right? You would get pockets of good, right? You would find no common approach. And what you would find is when sponsors of that digitization leave, the support for it wanes, right? That was our reality 3 years ago, right? What I described there was Stanley Black Decker 3 years ago, but we have more than 3 sites. We have over 50 sites across the globe. So what I would like to do is kind of talk to you about that journey, how we've gotten there, because today we are accelerating our digital globalization. We are not transforming digitally. We are down a path that we know is continuous. We have common applications. We have global standards and local customization. And we have agreed upon set of standards, and we are delivering year-over-year sustainable results. So let's jump right in. So Stanley Black Decker, just real quickly, for those of you who don't know about Stanley Black Decker, so we are founded in 1843, so we've been around for about 182 years. We have over 50,000 employees globally and over 100 manufacturing and distribution sites across the globe. We are fortunate to have a new CEO who really embraces and embodies the desire for digitization and data enablement. So I won't read the quote that's up on the screen, but you guys can read it. He is a fantastic supporter of what we do. Some of our brands. So obviously Stanley and Black & Decker are in our name. I think everybody knows those. DeWalt, Cub Cadet, to name a few. Craftsman. A lot of great brands. I like what it says on here. We stock your shed, your truck, and your toolbox. I think everybody probably knows a little bit about Stanley Black & Decker from that perspective, but we're also very instrumental in the industrial fastening business as well. So if you drove here or flew here today, the planes and cars that you were in had fasteners from us, and we helped you get here safely. So that's a little bit about who Stanley Black & Decker is. So as we embarked on this digital transformation, we focused on the supply chain. You're probably saying, hey, why the supply chain? Well, we have over 48,000 employees in our supply chain, right? It is a big piece of our employment. Again, over 100 manufacturing sites, so a lot of locations. And this team has driven down inventory in the last 3 years by over $2 billion. So $2 billion of inventory has come out, and we couldn't have done this without digitization and the work that we've done. What's fascinating about this is we have driven down inventory by $2 billion of finished goods, and we've increased our service by 15 points. We have seen double-digit improvement in quality year over year, and we are at world-class levels from a safety perspective, just to name a few. And those are what I would call high-level across the entire organization performance. We were at dinner last night talking to one of I'll call it our flagship sites from a digitization standpoint, and their OTIF in the last 18 months has improved from 28% to 93%. So a lot of you may say 93%, that's nothing to write home about, but when you start at 28%, getting to 93% is a pretty impressive journey. And again, none of these would have been possible without more efficient use of data, period, right? That's as simple as it gets. The reality is, unless we continue to drive greater efficiency through smarter use of data, we will not compete in the workplace, right? We will not compete with our competitors because we know everybody else is doing this. We have to find ways to stay ahead of everybody. It is absolutely necessary in what we do. All right, so let's jump in to really why I'm here to talk about. How do you embed digital enablement into your operations? And do it and scale it across. This says 50 sites because we did decide to focus on a subset of our organization. The first thing we had to do was we had to take an honest look at ourselves and recognize where we were at, right? Again, I'll kind of restate that. We had to take an honest look at where we were at. So there's what I tell my boss every day on how good we're doing, but then there's, hey, let's take a step back and really look at where we are and be honest with ourselves. We knew we had the right platform with Tulip. At this point, we had been with Tulip for a while. We liked what it did. We saw pockets of excellence with it. We knew we had the right people. We just didn't govern it well, and we didn't have the right culture to look at things globally. We knew that we had to get those aligned with our tool and our people if we were to ever proceed. So again, first step, where are we at? Let's be honest with ourselves and determine where we are at. And think about it. If we knew Mike wanted help to get started, and Joe shared his best practices, and Alessandra was leveraging her team's momentum with a common language, we could have done so much more. We knew we needed to standardize, right? Without that standardization, we couldn't proceed. So that takes us to step 2, right? So step 1, let's be honest, let's figure out where we're at. Step 2, let's standardize. So we laid out a 3-step plan. This is really pretty simple in our mind. So we are going to standardize our processes. We will then be ready to digitize, and we can then optimize. Seems pretty straightforward. Again, we're manufacturing folks. We don't try to get too complex. We keep it simple. And that was our approach, right? We knew by creating standards, we could create the culture that we needed and the simplification to spread the work that we want to do from a digitization perspective. As we did this, we realized, hey, how are we going to standardize, right? What is going to be our mechanism to standardize? We said, hey, let's start by making it very clear. We picked 5 standards. We picked 5S, tier board meetings, Gemba, leader standard work, in 5 Ys. We said these are simple tools. Everybody understands them. We're going to standardize these globally and have one tool to do it across all of our sites. And the standards we picked or we selected were important to us. But what was more important, or probably the bigger message there, is we had to have one standard. We couldn't have our European sites doing one thing for 5S and our US sites doing something different. Same with tier meetings. If we ever wanted to talk performance, if we're all measuring our performance differently, there was no value in that. We actually had different lines in the same plant having different tier boards and measuring their performance differently. And I'm sure nobody else has anything like that in their sites, right? But we saw, if you think of the hundreds of lines that we had, technically we were doing them all differently. We were measuring them all differently. Today, we have one way to measure performance across all of our lines across the globe. Now, I said early on, I need to be honest and share our experiences with you. All of our experiences aren't always good, right? There are some challenges that we had. So this is a good point to pause and talk about one of those challenges. The first challenge that we had was, hey, we defined our work as standardization. That comes with it kind of a connotation. If you're at the plant and you're getting shoved a standard, there's a connotation to it, but that's not what we did. We realized what we really did is we were going down a path of composability, right? We didn't call it that, but that's exactly what we were doing. We were saying, hey, we want to standardize these things, and we want to let you have the free range to standardize these or to customize these other things. Our stop and learn lesson was we missed the terminology. We didn't miss the intent, we missed the terminology. The second miss, or I skipped this slide. So this was the tool we used to drive our standardization. So we created what we called Stanley Performance Excellence, or SPX. This is our operating model, right? Everybody, all of you probably have an operating model that you use within your organizations. We use this as our leverage to drive the standardization. If you look at the third bullet down, it really sums up what this organization did. A common mindset and methodologies that define the way that we work. That's what we wanted this team to do. Go define that, go spread that, go make sure we are thinking the same way and driving the same types of work. So again, we saw the issue that we had where we called it standardization and it should have been composability. The second thing we did, and again, I'm sure this is unique to us, we expected every plant to respond the same way and roll out the standards the same way, right? So if you think of the Alessandra, Jove, and Mike example, they're all going to roll these standards out in a different manner, right? We send a standard out on 5S, and 2 days later, Alessandra's team has identified a pilot site. They're doing their workshops, and they're up and rolling. Jove is saying, well, gosh, we've been doing this for years. I'm not going to waste my time. We've already got everything implemented. And you have Mike saying, I don't have the resources to do this. I'm so busy fighting fires on the shop floor. So what we found out was everybody's not in the same place, right? Our sites are all in a different place from a maturity standpoint. So our big lesson learned after we decided to standardize was we have to meet our sites where they're at. We can't just go tell them all to do the same thing. So we developed a 5-stage maturity model. Within that model, it says, hey, if you want to create a tier board, Here are the steps that you need to do. You need to define your KPIs, right? You need to do it manually. Then you can go to digitization. Then you can go to automated data collection. Then you can go to all these different things, and we defined and laid out this roadmap. So then when we sent that out, Joe was like, oh, this is great. I'm over here at stage 4. I'm going to go drive these stage 4 and stage 5 actions to mature. You have Mike on the other end of the spectrum is saying, oh, this is exactly what I needed. These are the things that I need to work on. And you have Alessandra in the middle, who we could customize her action plan as well. I would say if you're taking notes or thinking about going down this journey, this was one of our biggest aha moments. Don't try to send one plan to every site because they're not the same. They're in different points from a maturity standpoint. And if you meet them where they're at, you're more likely to be successful. All right, so now we're on to the digitize. So you think about it, this was I'll call it roughly a year-long journey, right? We are standardizing, we're rolling out the maturity model, we're kind of regrouping to roll out the standards. It takes about a year to get across 50 sites to do that and do that well. We then come to the digitize phase, and I'm going to go back, and you can see an example on the slide. So you can see on the far left the manual performance boards at a site. Most of you have probably seen something like that at your sites. Where we're at today is we have completely digitized automated data collection, actions being collected and acted upon. I'm excited to find ways to use AI now to analyze those actions that we do and how do we respond to them, how do we prevent them. But that's where we're at today. We have found a way to go from paper on the shop floor to digitizing the work that we do and doing it in a standard way across all of our sites. So now, on to the digitization. Why digitize? So some of the things that we've learned as we've digitized, driving adoption of standards is easier with digital technology. We have found that the workforce likes digitization, right? Our workforce today is more open to and accepting of digital solutions than they ever have been in the past. And we have actually found that when you provide a digital solution, the adoption rate is significantly higher. Creating value through increased productivity and quality. What I would say here is, and we'll show a slide here in a second, and we've seen like the 72 million number of automations that are happening. You'll see something similar for us. All that work is now automated. So either you weren't doing it before, or you were spending time to do it in the past. And now you have insights, or you have available resources to work on those things. Ensuring data is consistent across all of our manufacturing sites. If you do it manually, that's a harder task to do than if you do it digitally, right? It's that simple, right? If you do it digitally, you can go and you can see and you can validate and you can verify everybody's measuring things the same way. And then duplicate systems. I love the pitch today on Excel because when I graduated in 1991, or it wasn't Excel, sorry, it was just the spreadsheets, I was a master at setting up operational systems in Excel and Access. Right, so I thought I had solved all the world's problems because of the formulas I could do in Excel and what I could do in Access and how it could help drive shop floor performance. But what we found is the digitization approach we're using today eliminates so much of that wasted work. All right, so this slide, I'm just going to show you one of the things that we created. This is a really cool outcome of the journey that we've been on. We created a toolbox, right? This is our SPX Toolbox, a very fitting name for a tool company, so you guys can feel free to use that if you'd like, unless, of course, you're from TTI. I think TTI is here. You guys have to come up with your own name. But we created a toolbox for a repository for all of our standards, all of our trainings, all of our learnings, and also all of our digital applications. So any site, anywhere in the world, for Stanley Black Decker can go in and they can say, hey, I want to work on this thing. I want to get started on this. What's out there? What have our teams done out there as a best practice? And they can just click on the link. It takes them to the tools that are out there, and then they can open the editor and they can decide to modify it, use it as is, and the standards are already built into it. This has really just accelerated the rate at which people are driving their digitization. It also allows us, when we find a best practice, you saw the Ops Moto slide where it says, hey, this site's doing something really well. We can incorporate it right here and instantly spread it to all of our sites. So it's just a phenomenal asset that we have, and it's kind of cool, right? It's every time my boss calls me, hey, what are you guys doing on digitization? I can send them to the link, and I said, you go find out for yourself, right? You go take a look. This is our version, I guess, of kind of the ops motto. We track our usage in Tulip in the digital apps, right? The piece of data that I want everybody to pull away here is 11,500 automations every month, right? Again, I go back to this is work that either A, we weren't doing before, or B, we were spending time doing. So we now do this automatically behind the scenes at no cost, so we can now spend our time driving value for our customers versus spending time crunching data, looking at data, or ignoring the data. All right, I think this is my final slide. No, maybe not, 2 more. Digital enablement is holistic, right? We really learned that we can't just go and do this in bits and pieces within our organization, right? Because it is a mindset that we wanted to create. So we had to look at it holistically. We had to give solutions across all avenues of our manufacturing operations in order for it to really take hold. That was our lesson number 1. Composability drives sustainable excellence. Anybody who's been here, I know, already knows that, but it was a huge, I guess it's a huge confirmation of that from our perspective. When sites know that there are standards they can work on and they can customize to meet their factory's needs, the value of their automation work that they do is significantly better. And then we know that just the shareholder value. I mean, if you remember the slide from our CEO, he wasn't about, hey, this drives productivity. It's like, no, we can innovate for the customer. That innovation could come in forms of cost savings, but it also comes in the form of better products, delivered on time, safer factories, all those things that are of value to our customers or consumers as well. All right, what's next? I thought about this slide for a long time. Like, how am I going to frame up what are we doing next? And what I came to conclude is that we don't want to limit ourselves. I don't want to limit what our company can do next by giving my limited information, right? We have 50 sites, all driving benefits, all driving improvements. We have new technology coming. I think anything I stand up here and say what's next for us will limit and minimize what we're going to do. I can say a couple things, right? And I've said a couple of these messages before, is our workforce is more skilled and more accepting of digital solutions, period, right, than ever before, right? We see that globally across the world, every site, no question. Data is increasingly available and easy to get, right? It's not as hard. You don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars installing hardware and infrastructure to collect data. It's much easier to get. We have tools to work with that data now that the end user at the shop floor can program and create something that makes sense for him or her. And then there's the whole discussion on AI. Right? Just the evolution that that's going to take us just tells me that our next step, and I hate to use this word, but our next step is going to be transformational, right? It's not going to be incremental. We aren't going to see a little step or a little improvement in how we digitize. We're going to see, if I'm back next year, you're going to see a massive change in how we've implemented and leveraged data to drive value to our customers. So with that, I realized I skipped every slide I prepared. Every note that I prepared, I just kind of ignored, and I really shared with you, just a true, honest story of the journey we have been on at Stanley Black Decker. It has not all been perfect. We were probably further behind than what we should have been when we started, but it's been a fantastic journey, and we are in a significantly better place today than we were just 18 months ago. So I thank you for your time today. I look forward to connecting with many of you throughout the session over the next couple of days. So thank you.